introduce yourself a little bit?
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about your family, when you guys moved to Senegal, where are you now, and all that.
Okay, let's see. I originally from Michigan by way of Atlanta, and I moved to Senegal in February 2nd, 2022, so 2/2/22, and I actually moved there as a single
Wow.
woman. I moved there as a single woman,
Oh
actually,
my.
and I met my husband, and I'm Muslim. There's no dating in Islam, so we got to know each other,
Oh my
and we got
God.
married
Okay.
maybe like within 2 months, I think. So by April, we were married. We actually met on Instagram. I don't remember exactly when. So we just chat. It was just a friend thing. It was we met through Malcolm X was a common theme between us. So we would just chat about Pan Africanism and things like that. So we're really into that. And then I've already been to Senegal in 2018. So I'm like, this is somewhere I
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
move to actually. So in 2022, I moved to Senegal and let's see, within 2 months we got married. It's funny, he was actually gone a whole month in March. He was one of the people who were marching from Dakar to Bamako, Mali. I don't know if you
Oh,
heard
okay,
about
okay,
that
okay.
like a few years ago.
I
They
think
were
I
one of
did.
the people who marched it was like 900 miles or something like that. So that took
Oh
about
my
a month.
God.
So when literally the day after he got back, we got married. And so,
Oh, when you know, you know.
literally, yeah. So we got married and then we ended up having a baby, got pregnant. And so I was back and forth from Senegal to Atlanta. And then I had my baby in Atlanta. And then after about 3 months later, went back to Senegal and we were there living
Wow.
there for a while. And I'm just in Atlanta currently. I'm actually going back next month. So just back and forth.
Yay. Wow.
So
Wow. Is it because you work in Atlanta sometime or like for family reason?
I'm my mother's only child and
Mhm.
that's her grandson. I'm not actually currently working right now. I'm actually thinking of getting back into work. I'm into
Mhm,
tech.
mhm, mhm,
That field is very volatile.
mhm.
So I would just go back and forth so he can be with his grandmother and his father back and forth. Let's see, he speaks Wolof. He understands Wolof.
Mhm.
My son, he is 14 months now. His first word was a Wolof word. It means come.
Oh my.
Learning a little bit of French,
Mhm.
very slowly. He knows how to count to three in French.
Mhm.
Since he's like usually around me more most of the time, he speaks a lot of English and he understands English.
Mhm.
He knows the phonics and alphabet phonics, I should say,
Mhm.
of the
Mhm.
English
Mhm.
language. So we haven't
Mhm.
gotten far with the
Yeah.
other languages with that yet.
Yeah. So, do you communicate with your husband in English or
Mhm.
Wolof or
And
like how do
it
you?
depends. So I only speak English fluently. That's my native language.
Okay.
So I talk to him in
Mhm.
English. When we're messaging,
Mhm.
I'll translate to French, like translate the words, just so he can understand exactly what I'm trying to say. Because my husband,
Mhm.
that's his
Mhm.
third English is his third or fourth language, and so sometimes I really want him to understand. I'll just put it in French. But yeah, that's mainly communicating in English to my husband.
Got you. Got you. And how was it to live like when you moved to Senegal?
Mhm.
How was it for you, English speaker, moving to a French slash Wolof speaking country?
Well,
How was that?
let's see. When I first got there, my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, he was actually out of town. So when I got there, I was kind of on my own, and I don't speaking French, don't speak Wolof.
I don't.
So I just happened to build a community before I came of a
Okay.
bunch of people from all over the world, and one person actually picked me up from the airport, took me to my Airbnb. Thank God for them because I don't know how I would have done it. I guess I don't know if I was just I don't know. I'm one of those type of people, I'm an explorer, I'm gonna just figure it out, you know? And
Hmm.
so yeah, I kind of built a community with them. And so that's really what helped me my first visit or when I first got here to Senegal. And then once my
Hmm.
husband came back in
Hmm.
town, I got a lot of help with him. And one of the people who actually really helped me out that was part of that community is actually a Senegalese guy. I call him my brother. He's always helped me with anything I need. He helped me find my first apartment. He's helped me out a lot. And even till this day, he still helps me. I actually built a community and a family in Senegal. So,
Hmm. That's
and
awesome.
he's the
That's
same
awesome.
tribe as my husband and my son. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, We're
So
family.
I know nothing about tribes in Senegal, but are
Mhm.
there like a lot of them? Do they all
Oh,
speak
yeah.
Wolof or no?
So my husband is Jola, and they speak Jola.
Oh, Jula. Okay, we have
Yes,
those in Ivory Coast too. Okay, uh huh.
yeah, they're in the south of Senegal, but he pretty much lives in Dakar, which is in the north part, really the north or the mid. But they weren't exposed to Jola a lot, so a lot of the family don't speak it. But he's learning Jola, my husband. So it's actually funny when I first met, before we even got married, I said, "Don't you want your kids to know Jola? I think you should learn Jola." I started learning Wolof. I was taking
You.
a course, and pregnancy brain kicked in and I couldn't retain anything. So I'm gonna go back because I could carry a short conversation with Wolof with his family. I can
Wow,
remember
that's
a few
amazing.
things. Yeah, I can remember a few things. Like the class was amazing, and it was a bunch of Americans on the class, and I think about 90% of them lived in Senegal. And class was amazing, but I had to drop it because I just couldn't retain anything.
Of
And I'm
course.
gonna go back and take it again because I want to talk to my in-laws more. I love my Senegalese family. I adore them, and I want to get past the hello. How are you? Fine.
I know. That's what my husband is complaining about. It's like I cannot have a conversation. It's hello, how are
Hmm.
you? How was your day? And
And then we have to translate through my husband. I'm just like,
yeah.
so
Mm.
I think it's
Oh.
about two other family members that speak a little English in his family,
Hmm.
but yeah, I was very surprised that they took to me so well, not being from Senegal at all. So that was
Hmm.
one
Hmm.
thing that was very surprising. Anybody?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm surprised that they have Wolof classes and
Mhm.
specifically for I'm guessing English speaking people. That's kind of amazing.
They
I
have pretty much for like French people too, because Senegal has a lot of French people in there. Well, I should say Dakar has a lot of French
yeah.
people. Actually, surprisingly, this is one thing that surprised me about Senegal. I mean, Senegal was the only African country I've ever been to, but Dakar is it's multicultural.
French.
So no, it's
Mm.
actually multicultural. I see Korean people, Chinese people, Korean, Ethiopian, and Dakar,
Oh
people from
wow.
all over Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa,
Hmm.
and even just American white people, like in Dakar, just hanging out.
Hmm.
So it was
Wow.
surprising to see people from everywhere just in this little area in Dakar.
That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. So once you got pregnant,
Hmm.
did you guys discuss, like, talk intentionally about raising your child with both language, or did you talk about what language you were gonna teach him, or
I don't think we even discussed it. I think it was just automatic. Being African American and not really have that connection like we want to with Africa, or even have a connection to anything outside of African American culture. I wanted my son to have that and have the French, have the Wolof, have the Jola. And there's a school that I'm thinking about taking him to. They do French, English, and Chinese. I want him to. We all want the best
wow,
for our children and want them to have everything. So I'm like, I want him to
right?
get
I
it all.
know.
So
The school
I
is
don't
in
know.
Dakar, or
It's in the
or
car.
in okay, okay, okay.
It's in the car, and
Cool.
I want him to like kind of just have as much as possible because I didn't retain my Spanish. I was fluent when I was a
Hmm.
child, and I want him to be able to
Yeah.
talk to different people. I noticed one thing: when you're speaking a different language, your personality kind of changes depending on the language you're speaking. Your voice, your personality. I want him to have that option. I don't think it was really a discussion. Actually, it was. I
Hmm.
told my husband not to talk to him in English.
Oh, okay.
I remember now. I just remember. I told him not to talk to him in English. Only talk to him in French and Wolof. So
Yeah.
that's what he does.
That's a good strategy. That's a good
Mhm.
strategy. I remember with my daughter, my husband knew I wanted her to be bilingual because
Mhm.
I had her in the US. And the thing is, my husband only speak English but I'm bilingual. So I can speak both languages fluently. But I was like, I'm going to talk to her in French. So that was my decision. I'm going to talk to her in French. And even when we're in the US. So a lot of
Mhm.
time she will answer to me in English, but I will talk to her in French.
She understands it.
But she understood. Yeah, she understood
That's
it. When I was reading about bilingualism, I read that even if the kid, like, there's different level, I guess, or type of bilingualism, and if
mhm.
if somebody understands two languages, the person is bilingual, whether they speak it both language like fluently or
Mhm.
not. That's the first step, and then
Mhm.
they can be bilingual just understanding two languages. Then there's
Mhm.
another level they can be bilingual by speaking and understanding and all that. So I was like, okay, so that's fine. I'm not discouraged, even if she answered only in English. But
Just gotta get
yeah,
it.
yeah,
If you're speaking to her and just French, just gotta get it. My fear is that he's going to be speaking to me and I won't understand what he's saying. And if he needs something, he's telling me, and I'm like, I don't know. I know a woman, she talked on Instagram and she has 4 children, and her husband, he was born in Ghana. I think he's from Mali, and he speaks like 3 or 4 languages. And they all
hmm.
speak, all
Wow.
her children chose a different language as their first word. So one spoke Arabic as their
Oh.
first word, one spoke English, one spoke
Hmm.
Hausa. So you also will get the children who use multiple languages in one sentence. And
She still does it. Mine still does it. Yeah.
and I'm like, I hope that when he's asking for something, I can understand it. So I really need to learn my Wolof. Maybe French, but I
Yeah.
definitely need to get my Wolof.
From what I've read, and I think what I've seen, is that the kids basically, when they see the necessity of a language, they will speak it.
Hmm.
So if your child see that you only understand English, when he needs something from you, guess what language he's gonna use?
Gotta speak it.
English.
That makes
Because
sense.
that, and I've seen it with my daughter. Like, so in the US, she was only answering in English. She spoke a little
Hmm.
bit of French, but whatever. But I would speak to her in French, and she would always answer in English. Girl, when we moved to Ivory Coast in 2 weeks, she was speaking French because nobody would understand her like around her. She
Hmm.
saw that, if she want to be, and her French was not perfect, but she could make herself understood. So it's about what's useful for them. They go the most
That makes
useful way,
sense.
the most useful path. So yeah, because she knew I was speaking both English and French, she
Hmm.
was going with the English in the US because she knew everybody would speak English and blah blah blah. But once
Hmm.
here, and she saw that it was kind of reversed, she switched to
To
French. So that
French.
was
I love
pretty
that.
interesting to see. They're smart little brains.
Yes. My son, I only know a little bit of Wolof, but when I need him to do something in those words that I know, I would tell him, like, when I tell him to come, I'm like, Kai, 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 Kai. And he'll, Kai, he'll respond back yelling, Kai, that was his first word. So, but
That's awesome.
he'll repeat whatever I'm saying in Wolof, but not in English,
Hmm.
unless I say
Hmm.
stop.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
even like in Atlanta right now, is that how it is? Like he will repeat in
mhm.
Wolof.
Yeah,
That's
he'll repeat it.
awesome.
It
That's
depends. If
awesome.
I say it in Wolof, he'll repeat it in Wolof. Unless I say in English, stop. Oh yeah, I forgot to also. He knows sign language too. So
Oh, sign language. That's
we've been
awesome.
we've been doing sign language since he was born. My mother, she was an interpreter, so
Uh
we
huh.
made
Uh-huh.
sure to implement that. And he used to sign all the time when he was like a little baby. He would say more or
Mm-hmm.
milk and stuff. But then for a long time, he just stopped. And
Mm-hmm.
I would sign to him, and he would do what I asked, but he wouldn't respond back, getting back to signing. So that was technically his first
That's
language, was
amazing.
just signing, sign language.
Yeah. That's amazing what they can do, the kids can do. That's so cool. That is so cool.
Yes. Yes.
So you've been back and forth between
Mhm.
Senegal and Atlanta. How do you see, I guess, the difference between raising a bilingual or multicultural kids in Senegal versus in Atlanta? Like, is it harder? Is it?
I think it's better in Senegal because one, he's around his cousins who's only speaking in Wolof and his family,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
he doesn't hear it often when he's here. So it's like
mm-hmm.
it's intriguing and things like that. But here, we're only speaking English and he doesn't listen in English. It's so weird. You can tell him to come
The language of
here.
authority is.
Yes, I'm like, "Come here," and he does not. Mm-mm. But if I'm like, "Guy," or anything like that, or eat, he's starting to do it in English when I'm like, "Are you ready to eat?" Or if he's playing with his food, I'm like, "Eat." Or if I say it in Wolof, he'll do it in Wolof, but not in English. So I don't know. I just feel like it's more of a family oriented thing in Senegal. Everything is just
Mhm,
family there. Here, when I'm in Atlanta, I am here with technically 4 generations: my grandmother, my mother, me, and my son. But
mhm.
it's only 4 of us compared to where we're in Senegal. And it's like 15 of
Of
us.
course, yeah. Uh-huh, 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 uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
I feel like and we're all just speaking English here. In Senegal, you have people
Mhm,
speaking. We have actually a niece, she's speaking Jola. She's from the South. So she's speaking Jola in the house, and you have people speaking French in the house. So I feel like in Senegal it's a little easier for me. And even though I'm the only one speaking English to him, but he's listening better in Wolof when he's there.
Hmm. When you're in Senegal, how so you speak with him in English only when you're in
Mhm.
Senegal?
In
And do
Senegal,
you like do like FaceTime with your mom, or like how do you
oh,
encourage him to keep learning English?
when we're in Senegal, I try to speak English to him since everybody's speaking Wolof. And of course, we're doing FaceTime with my mother and my stepmother, his family, my sisters, well, my half sisters, and things like that. So we try to talk to him all the time. Of course, he's not responding because
It's
you know
okay, girl.
he's a
Trust me.
toddler. But
Exactly.
I try to talk to him in English just because I don't really know a lot of Wolof. But when I do have those words, I tell him in Wolof, even when I'm in Senegal. So.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. And when you were going to Senegal with him, did you bring any English resources, maybe books, or what other resources besides speaking with your family do you use over there to help with the English? Or is it
So I
you and your
haven't.
family only? Or
He loves books. So we've been reading since literally the
yay!
day he got home. He has a
Hmm.
favorite book. It's in English.
Which
So
one?
when
Which one?
it's called I'm a Little King, and that's the only book that he sits and watches or reads. It's about a little black boy and how he's just
Hmm.
has a good heart. He's a little king and stuff like that. So that book is in English. When I'm in Senegal, I'm reading to him in English and French, to be honest with you. Well, my husband's reading French. Even like over FaceTime when we're in Atlanta, he's reading the book in French. I have a book I can read in Wolof better than I can read in French. It doesn't sound that great, but I try. So I do have a couple of books in Wolof that I read to him.
Where did you find those? Where did you find those?
Amazon, Etsy.
You bought them in the US?
Hmm.
The book in Wolof?
Hmm.
Wow.
I haven't looked for any books in Senegal. I need to start looking for that. But the only thing I can find is like French books. So,
I
and
know.
I don't do a lot of screen time, but when we do screen time on it's YouTube, I have found a Wolof Kids.
Nice.
It's like 40 minutes long. It's a bunch of different singing and it's about the alphabet, numbers, Senegalese last names, how to introduce yourself, washing your hands, and it's all in Wolof. So
That's awesome. What is the name of that channel for people who want to check it out?
it's called Atama, Atama, I believe.
Okay.
That's
I'll
one
look it
of
up and I'll
them.
put.
So he does
Yeah.
that. I don't have like he likes Miss Rachel. I know you're familiar with Miss Rachel. I try to find a French version of
Is,
Miss Rachel.
is it English? What is Miss Rachel?
She's
A
a
YouTube channel?
yeah, it's a YouTube channel. So pretty much her son was like delayed with speech and she was trying to find like
Mm-hmm.
someone who taught for kids like that. And since she couldn't find it, she made it that way. So she does like
Oh,
sign
gotcha.
language, she teaches them how to speak on there and things like that.
Mm,
And he loves Miss Rachel. She has great energy, she sings
nice.
and but I tried to find a French version and it's really hard. I found a woman who kind of has it but doesn't have the same energy. When I'm in Atlanta, I try to implement like make sure he's getting some other language outside of English. So
And how do you do that? How do you do that? Beside the Wolof YouTube channel, I guess the books.
So
How
when
do
we're in the
you?
car, I started recently getting into like Senegalese music. I don't know if you kind of heard it. I
Yes, yes,
started
yes,
playing
yes.
it. Yeah, I started playing it a little bit so he could just hear it. Whenever we're in the
Mm-hmm.
WhatsApp group and someone in the family group is like sending a message with the voice, I will play it out loud so he could just hear it.
Ah.
And so I have no idea what they're saying, but he's
He can
still
hear
getting
the
yes.
sonority. Yep, yep, yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
so he can hear different people,
That's
different voices,
cool.
and how people. Yeah, so he can hear the different dialect of Wolof and things like that. Like one of his aunts, she speaks really fast, so he hears that, and then I have an uncle who speaks really slowly. So he gets
Yes,
he
also.
gets exposed. Yeah, and then the
Hmm.
music and. So I try my best as a 24th century mom. Like I know people in the past didn't have these options,
No, they did not.
so I try to do what I can.
Yeah, that's good. That's a lot of good resources because
Hmm.
at least in Ivory Coast, I feel like I'm limited because I want her to keep her English too.
Hmm.
I'm not like you only have two languages to worry about
Hmm.
French and English. So when we were in the US, I could order easily from Amazon books in French and whatnot. What I did sometime was to, when she didn't know how to read, now she's just learning how to read.
Hmm.
But for a while, I would read English books like I would translate in French as I'm reading.
Hmm.
So she would hear the story in French even if the book is in English. But now that I'm here, I feel like it's a little harder to find. So we moved back with a bunch of books in English
Hmm.
because I feel like it's harder to, like, there's no Amazon in Ivory
Yeah.
Coast.
Do you have Jumia at least?
So we do, but honestly, I've never ordered from them.
Yeah.
I never looked for books, like for English books on them. So
I
I
don't
have
think
no
they'll
idea.
have it on there, but they may.
So it's a little harder to find
Yeah.
English material here. So whenever friends come from the US, from another country, whatever, I'm like, oh, can you get this book to me or whatever? But it's not as easy as just going on the internet and just order it. So I find it a little more challenging. But
Well, I
yeah.
mean, you can
So that's
always
good. Yeah.
make a book. You can always make a book. You can use
True,
canva.com.
true, 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 true.
You can always,
That's true. Yeah, I can hear you now.
okay, there
Please
you
hear
go.
me.
You can always make it,
Okay,
or
I can hear you.
you can make it an adventure, and both of you can write the book together.
That's true. That's true. I was actually thinking about doing something. I didn't think about doing it at the book version, but now you give me
Hmm.
the idea. But I was, because last year we traveled a little bit around. We went to Togo, Benin,
Hmm.
Yamsukro. It was a year of travel, and I was like, oh, I should do a book to commemorate all the travel that she did in the first year. And I could make a little book with those
Hmm.
stories. I think she'll like it.
Hmm. Yep,
Thank you.
of
Yeah,
course.
that's good. That's good. That's good.
Hmm.
Okay, so
You're not.
how did you prepare for the how did you prepare for the big, because you moved to Senegal and you were like, I'm gonna leave there for like what? You knew you were gonna go for a while, right? Or was it just like a 2 week trip that transformed
Oh
into
no, it
something
wasn't a
else?
2 week trip. I got rid of stuff. I didn't know if I wanted to settle in
Okay, how did
Senegal
you
or
prepare?
travel.
Okay, okay. So that's my question. How did you prepare for the big move from the US, to Senegal? I guess this in 2022 when you moved.
2022.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take it back. 2018, how I got to Senegal in the first place. I actually went to an
Okay.
event in 20. Buying the ticket puts you in a winning or drawing to win a free trip to Senegal. No one thinks they're going to win, and I won all expense paid to Senegal, right?
What?
Yes, with a group of people I didn't even know. And I actually met my best friend on the
Wow.
trip. I met me and her are like this. That's my baby's godmother and everything. Like,
Wow.
so when I got there, we actually landed the day that Black Panther came out. So I was like, this is a sign.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So, and when I got to Senegal, I was like, this feels like home. I could be here. I could feel like I live here. I just love the food. I love the people. I loved everything about Senegal, the weather at the time.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that that wasn't all year around weather. Moved there in February. So, anyways, so I loved it. And so, what I did was I changed my entire career to work remotely. And so, I got into tech.
Wow.
And once about a year into my job, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go, and I moved. Sold everything, got rid of everything in my apartment, and packed up and just left. And it wasn't
Wow.
surprising for my family because I've done it before. I
You
never been
lived,
to the
yeah.
UK, and I applied to a university out there and just never been and just went. So it wasn't surprising. But once I
Wow.
got there, reality hit, and I'm like, okay, I actually need to figure some stuff out. So I wasn't prepared. I guess I started staying in Airbnb after Airbnb until while I was finding a place. And then that's when I say my brother, he found me an apartment. And it was a beautiful apartment. It was really beautiful. And it was like 500,000 Safa a month,
Nice. A month.
two
Mhm.
bedrooms, two bathrooms, beautiful. And
Mhm.
then we got married and things like that. So I didn't really prepare for this trip. I just kind of take it day by day. I was sometimes I just go by the wind, just wherever it
Yeah.
takes me, when I was single. So
Right? You're childless and single. Now it's different, right?
definitely different, because now I'm like, okay, let's see. Do we want to live outside of Senegal? Do we want to try another African country? So it's still in me, but now I have to organize.
So, two questions.
Hmm.
did you keep your remote job when you
Hmm.
moved in 2020 and work remotely from Senegal?
Hmm.
And also, were you worried about the language barrier back then, or you figure you will be able to manage?
So, yes, I kept my remote job. They didn't know I was not in the US
Super.
until
So,
my laptop got stolen, my work laptop got stolen
oh
my second
no.
week in my apartment. Someone broke into the window. I was on the fourth floor, American fourth floor, but they climbed through the window and stole my work laptop, my work Mac, and my personal Mac. And so then I had to report it stolen at work.
Oh no.
So then I did keep the job for a while after that, and then they were doing layoffs, tech industry, and then I just haven't worked since. And the language barrier, yes, I wasn't thinking about the language at the time. Like I knew it was, but I guess since my first experience there, I forgot that I had like people with me that spoke Wolof. So, but surprisingly, depending on the area you're in, you might catch a few people that speak English, but it's not widely spoken. I have to heavily rely on my apps, Google Translate to even order from a restaurant. So it's something I have to learn to deal with.
And once you guys, when you got pregnant and you're expecting and all that, did you have any expectation in terms of how it would be to raise a multicultural child? How easy or difficult or whatever? Did you have any expectation?
So one thing about me, I don't have expectations, period, because I don't want to be disappointed. So what I try to talk
Ah.
it out. I ask
Mhm.
him before, how do you want to do things? So we could set up expectations together or not. So sometimes it depends on the situation. I'm just like, okay, and I guess we never talked about the language thing outside of you talk to him
Mhm.
and you don't talk to him in English. That was pretty much it with the
Mhm.
language. Now that he's getting a little older, I'm trying to get him to soften up for the baby. So I'm like, when you read a book in French, I need you to talk to him like a
Sure.
baby. Change your voice for different characters, things like that. So he's working on it. But he's
Good
open to
for
doing that.
him.
I know, good for him.
Good
He's
for
open to
him.
doing it.
Yes.
But he's a very hands-on father.
That's good.
So,
That's good.
okay.
But I wanted to ask, is your boy in school, daycare, or some type of schooling in the US, or not yet? But how do you see
Yeah.
the school part? Because you're going back to Senegal next month.
Month.
That's the
Mhm.
plan. Is it going to be at home still, or are you planning to already put him in kindergarten,
Daycare.
or I don't know the system in Senegal,
So,
daycare?
he's only 14 months. He'll be 15 months at the end of this month.
Okay, so he's very young
So,
still. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's
I kept
still a
mine
little.
until 3 year old. So
I was homeschooled a little bit, so I'm a little torn about what I want to do and what type of school to put him in. Most of the schools in Senegal do French. I want him to be in some type of bilingual something. So, like I said earlier, there's one school that has, French, English, and Chinese. That might be an option. Or there's a
how old do
few
they start in? I guess
pre-K.
with
I
okay.
think it's 3 or 4. But I also want him
Mm-hmm.
to do Montessori. I'm really into Montessori and
Mm-hmm.
also
Mm-hmm.
Quran school. Like, we're Muslim, so, but then I'm like, there's no mix between
You got are
the
both
three.
Muslim.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no mix between the three. No bilingual Quran Montessori schools.
Montessori school. No, maybe you should do one. Maybe that's the
Because
niche. Maybe.
it's like, I even can't find like a Islamic Montessori school. Only one I've seen was in the US. So
Mm.
Montessori is very important to me, teaching them independence and things like that. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't want him to go to daycare. I think at his age right now, they're doing what they call parallel play, where they're not really interacting with each other. They're just playing next to each other.
Mm.
He gets his socialization with his cousins when he's in town. So I don't really know what I want to do, honestly. I think I have a year or so to figure it out, but I
Tough.
definitely want him to not only know English and speaking, I want him to like have English classes, know about the verbs and adjectives and things of English, just the same way he'll get
Writing
it
and
in
everything.
French.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and one thing
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed, they're still doing cursive in Senegal. They're not doing that in the US. So I
In
want to,
Ivory Coast too.
yeah, I
Girl,
love
that's the
it.
bane of my existence right now. No, I don't. I don't. You love it. What?
I love it because it's a lost art that we just don't do here anymore, and I already can't read in French, so everything is in everything. So it's already a foreign language to me, and then they write in cursive. It looks beautiful, but so I might have to do one of those things where he goes to school, a particular school, and then I'll have to do some things at home. So honestly, I don't know, but I want to make sure that French and English, and I really would love for Wolof to be included with the French thing. Their Wolof is just not included in school, but I feel like it's important to keep some type of native language. I didn't realize how lost it was until I started asking my husband, like, why do you give the number? He speaks French speaks Wolof most of the time, but then they'll give numbers in French. And I'm like, well, what's the numbers in Wolof? And then everybody was just like, you know what? We don't use numbers in Wolof. And so I started trying to get everybody in the house used to using regular numbers in Wolof instead of French, especially when they're around Malcolm, because I'm teaching him the numbers in Wolof. I got up to 3 in French and I just ran out of French.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's important for identity wise for the native language to be part of his identity, really. So I want him to have that. Even when if he doesn't choose to live in Senegal, I still want him to have that connection. So
I agree with you. I think it's so important. My dad is from Benin. My
mhm,
mom was from Cote d'Ivoire. So they spoke two different tribe languages, you know,
mhm.
and they never spoke to us.
Wow.
Guess what? I don't know how to speak any of those languages. And guess what? My dad's side of the family, they speak French even when they're between themselves.
Mhm,
My mom's side of the family, they speak in Bete, which is their language, when they're doing family meeting and all that. And
mhm.
clueless,
Yeah.
clueless. What people are telling me, like they could be smiling at me and saying God knows what, and I would not know. And I am not very close to a lot of them, but that's definitely a barrier, and I definitely like something I wish I knew.
It's never too late to
I
learn.
knew,
Late
I
to
know, but
learn.
they don't have like. I haven't looked very hard. I looked a little bit,
Mhm,
but I haven't found classes because I need classes if I'm gonna learn it. I feel like I will need classes, like kind of
mhm,
yours with the Wolof, or even another language that's very current here in Cote d'Ivoire is Jula. Even
mhm,
if you're not Jula, if you speak Jula, like your husband's language, it's like at the market and all that. It's the language. So
mhm.
yeah, I feel like I'm missing something. I don't have
And
that cultural. I
yeah,
do, but I don't have that
yeah.
cultural identity. So yeah, I agree with you.
And
I completely agree with you.
I was married previously, and my ex husband, his ex wife before me was Ethiopian,
Hmm.
and they have a daughter, and she didn't teach her any Amharic. And I'm just like,
Mm.
what? So I thought it was very
If you
important. And
speak it, teach it.
he
Yes.
learned the language to teach her. It's important. And I was like, if I ever have kids, this is going to be important. And so recently, actually, I did the African ancestry, and I found
Mm.
out on my maternal side where we're from. But I'm like adding another language now. That's going to be just too much.
Where
We
were you
already
from? Like, where did you find? What did you find? What did you find?
So
Which
I'm
part of
from
Africa?
I think they call it the Bubi people of Equatorial Guinea. So it's like a mixture of like Hausa, Takar. I forgot it's one more. But so I think they kind of either moved from this. It's like an island off the coast of Equatorial Guinea. I
Hmm.
don't know if they moved from there to Cameroon or the
Hmm.
other way around. They settled in Cameroon. So finally, as an African American, I have some type of identity, but this is a little much if I was trying to like learn another language, but at least we got the
There
French
all
part.
this, yes. Yay! There you go.
So,
See,
yeah, in Equatorial Guinea, they speak Spanish, and the Spanish is gone. I've
that's
always had a love
amazing.
for
That's so
Spanish.
yeah.
So I used to introduce him to Spanish, like the little bit of Spanish I know, and I love Spanish music,
Hmm.
but it's just a
Hmm.
lot.
Yeah. You guys already three languages. Three languages is already amazing. Wolof,
Plus
French,
sign
and English.
language.
That's already so cool. And four languages. That's amazing. That's amazing. And sign language is such an important one too. So that's pretty
Oh
cool.
yeah, yes.
So to finish, I would ask, what advice would
Hmm.
you give to someone that's raising a bilingual, multicultural child or children. What advice would you give for them not to get discouraged, or any tips or anything?
So it's a sister name. Her name is the Village Auntie, and I mentioned her for earlier. Said the best advice that I could share with anybody. She's an African American woman who's married to someone who has multiple cultures and languages. She says
Mm-hmm.
when you raise some children in a multicultural household, make sure they get both parts. It's important that yes, they may know how to make triple gin, but they don't also know how to make macaroni and cheese. Okay, like
Mm-hmm.
so it's
Mm-hmm.
important
Mm-hmm.
for them to have both of the languages. He might
Mm-hmm.
wear a grand boo, but he also might wear some sneakers or something like that. I want to tell people like make sure both of your cultures are introduced to the children,
Mm-hmm.
language, culture, tribal things like that, because it's important to their identity, honestly. And even when they get older, they'll appreciate it. When they get older, they'll be able to, if they have the language aspect, they'll be able to connect with other people from one of the cultures. So
Mm-hmm.
if he decides to come back to America when he gets older, at least he'll speak English. If he decides to stay in Senegal, he already has Wolof and French. So that's just be my advice. Try to implement both of your culture. Don't get discouraged and don't get
Mm-hmm.
lazy because it's a lot of work.
It
So don't get
is. I think that's where people get discouraged. They're like, it's hard, but it's so worth it. It's so
it
worth it.
is. It
So it's
is.
a
It
gift
definitely is.
to the
Yeah, and
kids.
then
Yeah.
he'll be able to speak to both sides of the family in English and in Wolof. So
Mm-hmm.
I think as parents, we just want to set our children to be the best future anyway, or be the best anyway. So I think, like I said, implementing both cultures and teaching them the history of both cultures. My son, his name is Malcolm, and his middle name is Hadim, but it starts with an X. So it's Malcolm X. It's a Wolof
Mm.
name, but it starts with an X, and he is African
Mm-hmm.
American. And like I told you
Mm-hmm.
before, and my husband and I, we met
Through that.
about
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Mm-hmm.
he has literally in his name both of our cultures. When my husband's family found out his name was Malcolm, they're like, that's not a Senegalese name. And I'm like, I have to, yeah, I'm not Senegalese, so I want them to
Yep.
understand
Mm-hmm.
our cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And last thing, picking names, for example, like if we have another child, a daughter, I would like a daughter. But one of the names that we picked is from a Senegalese woman who used to fight against the French. So she'll have that in
Strong.
her
Very.
history and we'll
Mm-hmm.
teach her about that. And
Mm-hmm.
even Malcolm, we'll teach him
Mm-hmm.
about Malcolm X. So
Mm-hmm.
that is important. That's my advice. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
just and don't get discouraged
Yep.
because it's a lot of work
Yep.
trying to figure out which
It's a lot of work.
language. Even like sometimes I'm like, does he
Yeah.
know that word in English or Wolof? Like I have to ask myself sometimes.
It
And be
is.
consistent.
Oh God.
And
Mm-hmm.
consistency. That's what yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Consistency. That is important. Yes. I've gotten lazy
That's
with
true.
the Wolof books, but now I'm gonna pick them up because I just read to him his
Yes.
favorite book and then I'm like, but but I'm gonna start reading the Wolof book. It just doesn't sound great coming from me.
It's okay. It's okay. It's something. It's something.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing.
Um,
All right.
that's-
Good.
I would love to hear your part.
My part. Okay. So the same as you, honestly.
Mhm,
I think try to expose the kids to both cultures, which
mhm.
it's really one of the reasons why we moved back to Ivory Coast, because I want her to be as comfortable in Ivory Coast as she is in the
Yeah.
US. I want
Yeah.
her to have a relationship with her family in Ivory Coast as she has one in her family. So that was a big thing. And then, like you say, it's hard. There's a way to do it, but it's hard. So don't get discouraged. Sometimes you feel like the kid is not absorbing, or maybe they're answering in the majority language, but they're still learning a lot, and
Yeah.
it's still a gift. And then the same advice, the consistency. It's hard, but you have to be consistent, be creative,
Oh yeah, that's the
and
part. Creative.
don't give up. Don't give up. You probably underestimating what your kids can take or process or learn,
Definitely.
but they're learning everything and
Mhm.
they will use it. So don't be discouraged.
Yeah,
That's my
definitely.
main thing. I've heard parents who started when the kids were young and then they kind of gave up as the
Mhm.
kids grow up, because maybe they're in the US and everybody speak English, so it's
Yes.
kind of harder. Some people find it awkward because you don't want to be rude and speaking a different language than other people don't understand, but sometimes you have to do it. You have to
Yes.
do it because you want your kid to learn.
Yes.
That's my thing.
Yeah, I agree.